Hi, Algebra 1. This is notes number 1 from unit number 1 on linear equations. Our learning target for this lesson is I can simplify expressions by combining like terms and using the distributive property. Before we can start simplifying our expressions, we need to talk about some vocabulary that we use to talk about expressions. So in our example here, this whole thing is an expression. The definition of an expression is a group of terms separated by plus and minus signs. So we can see here that I have some terms. There are plus and minus signs happening. That's my expression. The terms are the parts of an expression that are being added or subtracted. Each term takes the sign in front of it. So our terms here are circled. 3x squared is a term. Positive x is a term. Negative 10 is a term. So I can label these in my example as terms. Our next vocab talks about some of the smaller parts, some of the finer details. So a coefficient is the number in front of a variable. And if a variable does not have a number, the coefficient is assumed to be 1. So if we look at our example here, my expression says 3x squared plus x minus 10. I'm going to highlight my coefficients. My first coefficient is 3. It's the number in front of x squared. I also have a variable here that just has an x, but I don't see a number in front. My coefficient here would be 1. So in the term 3x squared, our coefficient, I'm going to abbreviate, is 3. In the term x, our coefficient is 1. A variable is a letter that represents a number or an unknown quantity. So sometimes we use variables just to stand in place of something we don't know yet. In this example, our variable, the only letter we're using, is x. The next one is a constant. A term without a variable is called a constant. So in our expression, 3x squared plus x minus 10, my term without a variable is the minus 10 at the end. That's my constant. The last term is probably the only one that's brand new, degree. When we're talking about degree, we are talking about the sum of the exponents of a term. So if we look at some of our terms here, in the term 3x squared, my degree would be the sum of the exponents. Well, my exponent is 2. In the term x, my degree is the sum of the exponents, but I don't see an exponent here. I know this x has an invisible 1 for its coefficient. It also has an invisible 1 for its degree. So our degree here is 1. For these problems underneath, given the expression 6x squared plus 2y squared minus 4x plus 7, identify each of the following. Take a minute, pause the video, answer these 4 questions about our expression, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, for this one we have 4 terms. 6x squared is a term, 2y squared, negative 4x, and positive 7. Our different variables are x and y. Coefficient of the third term is negative 4. Degree of the second term is positive 2. So let's move on to the back and talk about simplifying our expressions. Now that we have all the vocab we need, we can actually start simplifying. One way that we simplify expressions is by combining like terms. And like terms are terms that have the same variable and the same exponents. And when we combine like terms, what we're really doing is we are adding the like terms together. And when we do that, we add our coefficients. The variables just tell us which terms go together, and the coefficients are the parts that get added. So we are going to do number 1 and number 4 together, and then I want you to try number 2 and number 3 on your own. So I'm going to zoom in here to number 1. So when I look at this problem, I am trying to combine my like terms. So I need to know what my like terms are. The first term in my equation is 12x. The next term is positive 5. That doesn't have an x, so it can't be a like term with 12x. My last term is positive 2x. That does have an x, so it's a like term. 5 doesn't have any like terms. Poor constant, no friends, all by itself. So now when I add my two like terms together, 12x plus 2x, I'm adding my coefficients. So 12 plus 2 is 14, and the x is what term they are. 5 does not have a like term, so it's just plus 5. I can't combine anything else because 14x and 5 are not like terms. Okay, number 4. This one is a lot longer, but we're going to start the same way. My first term is 5x. I am going to look for any other terms that would be a like term with 5x. This next term, negative 2x cubed, almost a like term. It has the x, but the exponent is not the same, so that doesn't work. My next term is positive 10x. That's a like term with 5x, so I can color code that one the same. If I keep looking, none of those other terms have just an x. So now the next one, I have a negative 2x to the third power. My next term is negative 8. Well, that doesn't have a variable. Those can't be like terms. But the last term, positive 4x to the third power, does have a variable. Same variable, same exponent. And the constant, negative 8, does not have any like terms. So when I start combining my like terms, I'll start with the first one. 5x and 10x is 15x. Negative 2x to the third power plus 4x to the third power is 2x to the third power. And negative 8 didn't have a like term, so it stays the same. Pause the video, try number 2 and number 3, and then come back, hit play when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, for number 2, our simplified expression is 10n minus 13. For number 3, it's negative 2x plus 4x squared plus 4y. Another way that we simplify expressions is using the distributive property. The distributive property allows us to get rid of parentheses by multiplying the number outside the parentheses by all the terms inside the parentheses. So a big hint that you need to distribute is that you will see parentheses in your problem. For this one, we're going to do number 1 and number 2 together, and then I want you to try 3 and 4. When we distribute, I like to draw in my arrows to show me what number is being distributed and where it's being distributed. So this problem tells me I have a 4 being distributed to 2 terms inside the parentheses. When I multiply the first one, 4 times negative 5x, I get negative 20x. 4 times positive 2 is positive 8. I don't have any like terms in negative 20x or positive 8, so that's my final answer. In number 2, this time I'm distributing a negative 3. Negative 3 times positive 2x is negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. I don't have any like terms, so that's my final answer for that one. Pause the video, try number 3 and number 4, and then come back and check your work. All right, for number 3, you should have 12x plus 20, and number 4 should be 15x squared minus 5x plus 40. So in algebra class, it is not very often that a problem will tell you just to combine like terms or just to distribute. Usually, they'll just ask you to simplify. And all that means is we are using the distributive property and we're using combining like terms to make an expression look smaller and more manageable. So when we simplify an expression, the first thing we do is distribute. And then we combine like terms. So distributing is like multiplying. When we combine like terms, we add. So it makes sense that this goes in that order, that distributing has to happen first. If you think about the order of operations, or PEMDAS, multiplication comes before addition. So I have to distribute before I can combine. So for this one, we are going to do one problem together, and then I'm going to ask you to try the rest of them on your own. And we are going to do number 3 together this time. So in this problem, the first thing I need to do is distribute. I see 2 sets of parentheses here, which means I have to distribute twice. In my first set of parentheses, I'm distributing a 2 to both terms inside. 2 times 11x is 22x. 2 times 4 is 8. Now in my next set of parentheses, I don't see a number to distribute here. There isn't a number in front of my parentheses, there's just a negative sign. But what is there that we can't see is an invisible negative 1. So it's negative 1 that's being multiplied by both terms in parentheses. So when I distribute this, negative 1 times 4x is negative 4x. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Once we've finished our distribution, there are no more parentheses left in my problem. Now I can combine my like terms. I have a 22x and a negative 4x as like terms. We also have a positive 8 and a negative 5 as like terms. When I combine my x terms, 22 plus negative 4 is 18x. Combine my constants, positive 8 and negative 5 is positive 3. Try the other 3 problems in this section and then come back and check your answers when you're ready. All right, check your work on these 3. If you have questions or dilemmas or things aren't making sense, send me an email. We can schedule to meet during office hours, or I can answer your questions next class. Get started on practice number 1 and learning check number 1 if you haven't already.